All right, I believe the live stream will start in a few minutes, so fingers crossed. Yeah, it is. So, and yeah, we'll get started in a few minutes. Sorry, I had to mute the live stream so I don't hear an echo. Yeah, thanks everybody for joining. Just made sure that live stream is live, and then yeah, it's at the top of the hour, so why don't we get started, and then I'll do one more thing to record a meeting as a backup in case something happens with the live stream. So great. All right, I think we're set to go. Let me just make this to a full screen. Welcome everybody. Happy December. It's the final month of the long year. I mean, thanks for joining our second community call. Notice that we have a lot of folks online, and this is being live streamed. So people that are following on the live stream, feel free to type in questions on the chat. And anytime you have questions, you can either verbalize it if you're on call, put it in a Zoom chat or YouTube chat. And Ken, I saw that, I saw your comment. It should be live because I'm looking at it. There's a bit of a delay. There's about a minute lag between the discussion on Zoom and YouTube. So if you refresh, hopefully you'll see that live, but let me know if you continue to have problems. So let's get started. As we noted last month when we kicked off the meeting series, all the meetings that we'll hold or events, like we're going to remind people about the community code of conduct. We want to foster an open and welcoming environment for all, like all good open source communities. So just a reminder that this is there. And then if you have any, if you see anything, if you notice anything that's inappropriate, I mean, there's a email alias conduct@cube.dev if you can report incidences too. Hopefully that email alias is not going to be used very actively, but that's all there. Just a quick reminder on that. In terms of agenda topics today, as usual, we'll start off with community news. I have a few items that I want to discuss, and I also have my colleague Igor from the DevRel team. He'll talk about, I mean, he published a blog post. Hopefully everybody got to see it. So he'll talk a little bit more about our move to microservices. And we also have our community member, very excited, Ken Winter, who's going to talk about his work on Aurora serverless. I mean, the work is still ongoing, so hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about that in a little bit more detail and where community members can help. And also my colleague Hassan, I mean, he's been doing a lot of work. You probably noticed a lot of improvements that have been happening on documentation, so we thought it was worthwhile to point out some of the great work that's been done so far and plans for the next couple of months. And if we have time, we can definitely take Q&A or other open discussions at the end. But like I noted earlier, if you have any questions, I mean, don't feel like you need to wait until the end to ask your questions, whether it's through chat or just unmuting yourself and raising a question. So without further ado, we'll start off with some community news. I mean, it's always kind of risky to start off a meeting with legal topics, but here we are. But we thought it was important to talk about community contributions. So if you contributed to other open source communities, you may have heard the term contributor license agreement, or CLA. Some large open source projects for all contributors, some of them even required to sign a physical or legal document, or even if it's done virtually, they ask you to physically sign a document before you start contributing. But based on my experience, that's sort of an onerous task to ask of a developer. It's not very developer friendly. So there's a more lightweight, easier option called the DCO, or Developer Certificate of Origin. And I also had experience with this when I was at GitLab at my previous role. I mean, there was a blog post a number of years ago, I think in 2017, when GitLab switched from CLA to DCO to make it easy for developers to contribute. So we decided to adopt the DCO rather than going the CLA route. And basically what DCO says, it's pretty simple. You know, if you were to summarize it in one bullet point, is that first of all, you're acknowledging that the code that you're contributing, you have the right to make that contribution. And if you're making contributions on your own, that's certainly not going to be an issue. And then you also agree to the terms of our licenses at Cube.js. And we have 2 licenses, MIT for the front end and Apache 2 for the back end. So it basically says the code is yours, and then you agree to the terms of the agreement. It's pretty simple. And we also wanted to make this like really easy. You don't have to check anything on a form, or like, you know, you don't have to sign up your code or anything. Just by submitting a code through committing patches or making a pull request, you're saying that you agree to our DCO terms. So the full text is on the next slide, that if you want to take a look at it. And I know there are a lot of people that have contributed to Cube.js through pull requests over the past year or so. I think I identified about 30 people that I'm going to reach out to. So what I'll do is, if you contributed code before, like Ken has, I'm going to say, hey, we adopted a DCO. And then all of the past contributions will be covered under this developer certificate of origin. If you have any concerns, just let me know. So we also wanted to make it easy. Like, even if I send you an email, if you agree with the DCO terms, you don't really have to do anything. You can just get back to me within a few weeks if you have any concerns. But we definitely want to make this easy and seamless, and really lower the barrier to entry for developers. So hopefully, like I said, it's not always a good idea to start with a legal topic, but hopefully you'll also view this as a positive, where we're trying to make it easy for anyone to contribute to Cube.js. So if you're interested in the full details, we created a new file called dco.md. If you go to our main repository, so there's a motivation and the actual sort of the legalese text and the DCO text that was crafted a couple of years ago, actually, by the Linux Foundation. So go ahead and take a look at that. And some of this text is also part of the contributing.md file as well. So we place it in a couple of places so people won't miss it. But if you have any questions on this, or if you have any concerns in the future, please feel free to drop me a note or find me on Slack. But I'll pause here and just to make sure that there aren't any questions on a few of the chats. Yeah, it looks like we're good. So yeah, so that's a quick update. This is something that we wanted to sort of do when I started almost a couple of months ago. So happy that this is finalized and it's there. So the next item, this is sort of hot off the press, if you will. So thanks to a lot of people who helped me with this. I apologize for not getting started for our team members, so they had to sort of rush this towards the end. Igor, Leonid, and Anton. So we have a new sort of the community page under our web page. So the cube.dev/community, or like if you go under resources, you'll find it as one of the options. So we created a sort of a contributor page to help people get started. I mean, there are a couple of things that we wanted to highlight. When I think people typically hear open source contribution, they usually think of code, but we want to highlight the fact that there are other ways that a lot of people can contribute, and people have actually already done it in Cube.js community. I mean, one of the great things I've seen on Slack is that sort of community members sort of helping each other with questions, which is awesome. I think a lot of questions, obviously Cube team members can answer, but I think like questions like use cases and like a typical error message you're seeing, I think it's very meaningful if community members can help each other. So that's one area where people can help. And the other, like somewhat related to that, is Stack Overflow. There are some good discussions and questions that are posted there. And it's also great to see community members sort of helping each other out, in addition to, making pull requests or raising issues. So we wanted to create a landing page to people to get started. And let me jump to the next slide here. And this is obviously like a work in progress. We're going to be adding more content on this page. We wanted to start with the first, like a landing page. So people have, like, as they're getting started, like a resource to know where to go and to get started. And one of the things that we noted in the help section at the bottom of the page is that we created a new Slack channel called Pound Contributors. And I think, Ken, you posted at least like a couple of questions there already. So if you're having any questions as you're making contributions, or if you want to escalate something, for example, if you feel like your pull request review hasn't been done in a timely manner, that's a perfect place to sort of post reminders or ask questions as you're making contributions. So those are that's one area that we added for people to get help, and we encourage everyone to subscribe to the channel if you plan on making contributions and ask for help. So I think that's it for the landing page, and I think I'll turn things over to you. Like I noted, Igor, you published this blog post about a week ago, so I'll turn things over to you to talk about our support for microservice architecture in the next like 5 to 10 minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Ray. I'll be happy to do that. Eventually, after landing pages and legalese stuff, we have the chance to go a little bit more technical. So I'll talk about that a couple of minutes. So I hope that you had the chance to read this blog post, but anyway, like in the next few minutes, I'll cover its contents, and I hope Ray will help me with the slides. So on the next basically slide, we'll lay down our motivation for this change, because this move is quite huge. So as you all know, Cube.js is written mostly in JavaScript. We also have parts in TypeScript, and as you know from the previous community call, we are preparing the release of the pre-aggregations storage layer for Cube.js named Cube-Store, which is written in Rust. You'll learn more about that like in the future, but what we will talk now is that Cube.js it runs on top of Node.js, and as we know, often Cube.js is deployed in a fashion that is embedded or blended into an existing Express application because of its native support for that, and because Cube.js API naturally blends into the API of Express applications. But as we observed this year, talking to you, the developers using Cube.js, in some cases, especially when talking about applications which are run under heavy load, some performance issues appears. Basically, the root cause for them is that Cube.js was not designed to share the event loop of Node.js with other applications, and in case of heavy load, you basically got some kind of event loop contention. So the real problem here is that it's not really easy to debug and investigate these performance issues, and the best way to get rid of them is just not to deploy and use Cube.js in this embedded setup. So we no longer recommend anyone to be embedding Cube.js into Express applications. That being said, I should note that we are not deprecating, we're not removing any code from Cube.js. All the support for Express is in place, and we will keep it for at least next 6 months until June 2021. And maybe after that, you'll be probably hear the announcement about our next plans. So right now, we encourage developers like you and other developers using Cube.js to deploy it as independent microservices, one or more microservices. So on the next slide, basically, you can see the scheme which visualizes what I was saying, like never embed Cube.js into Express, but please run it as isolated microservices. And you can see here this blue icon has some whale symbol on that, which is basically the logo of Docker. I hope everyone recognizes it. So like making this move, we introduce some more features and more updates to our documentations, which will help you with the transition. So on the next slide, you can see that first, Cube.js has recently got its official Docker image, which is available on Docker Hub under Cube.js/Cube. It is updated and maintained by the team, so using this image, you'll always get fresh and stable Cube.js release. If you're creating a new Cube.js application, you'll actually use a new Docker template, which is the current default. It comes with some good new features. Well, obviously you get a Docker Compose file, which is convenient to run Cube.js and maybe with a database at the same time, just by running Docker Compose up. And also you get this new you get this new Cube.js file as a way to configure Cube.js. So this Cube.js file comes as a replacement for the index.js file which we had previously, and in index.js file we had to import Cube.js packages, launch the server, pass the configuration to it, and basically we had to maintain that code. It's no longer like the code. I think this Cube.js file, which comes with a template, is what it basically does. It exports an empty JavaScript object, and you can choose how to configure Cube.js either by pushing any options to this Cube.js file, and this will serve as defaults. And also you have the option to set environment variables either on your CI/CD system or in any kind of software using a deployment pipeline. In this environment variables will override what you have in your Cube.js file. And I guess like many of you have already Cube.js applications running in production. For their migration, we have prepared a migration guide, which is available in the documentation. It's pretty straightforward and it's really short, and I hope you'll have like no problems updating your applications and deploying it in a new fashion. But if not, I believe everyone on the Cube.js team and the community will be more than happy to help you with that transition. So just raise any questions you have on Slack or on File an issue on GitHub. We'll be happy to help you with that. So yeah, I'm quite excited that we're moving to this new level of microservice architecture support, and I hope you'll like it as well, because of the new deployment options and new monitoring and options that you got with this update, which will help you to keep your Cube.js applications reliable in production. So that's basically it.
All right, thanks, Igor. We appreciate it. And there's a question from David on the Zoom chat, and either you, Igor, or we also have Pavel and our team online as well. So the question is, any recommendation for serverless users? You recommend we migrate to this container-based approach?
Yeah, this is a really great question, and yeah, thank you, David, for asking that. In the last few minutes, I said I didn't mention serverless deployments because no changes affect them at all. We still encourage you to use serverless deployments if you think that they are great for your architecture, for your applications. So yeah, they are still supported. They are still great to use with Cube.js. We are not observing any issues with them, which are like on the level of issues we observed in regard to Express. So yeah, serverless is fine. Serverless is great, and feel free to check the blog post, because we elaborated a little bit more on that, like in that blog post. Yeah, thank you for the question.
David, hopefully that answers your question. Pavel, I don't know if you have anything else to add before we move on to Ken's discussion, but.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Hi, David. Yeah, so I believe the question and general concern is, do we still support like serverless in general? I saw some conversations in Slack and in Twitter. There are some questions about do we still support it? As Igor mentioned it, yeah, we still support serverless approach, and it's still what we are committed to support in future. Second question was, should we update to container-based approach? Like for serverless, as you may know, AWS started to support this containers feature for Amazon Lambda. So yeah, we think that container-based approach is a way to go here. So everywhere where you can migrate to Docker-based image instead of basically building it from NPM, would be better supported in future. However, we are still committed to support GCP deployments where there's just cloud functions and the same old way as it was before. Yeah, hope it answers your question. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, cool.
And then I think there's another question from Ricardo. We'll take this, take one more question before we move on to Ken. Does the migration cover custom authentication systems?
Yeah. Basically, the answer is yes, and in the existing example.
Whoops, I think Igor's video froze, but yeah, it looks like there's a link to a documentation there. So hopefully that covers it, and hopefully, yep. So
yeah, I can follow up. Yeah, so
to support this like authentication system that you have.
Cool. Go ahead, Pavel. So.
Fills the gaps of internet connection. Yeah. so yeah, idea is custom authentication like still supported, and yeah, we are committed to support it. Like all the configuration options that were in basically before in Express embedded way. So we are still committed to support all of them in Docker container way. We are deprecating some of these options which aren't compatible with the Docker. So, and you can see those in documentation. Yeah. So other than that, so everything should be supported in terms of configuration.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks, Pavel and Igor, for answering those questions. And other questions, I mean, feel free to post them on Slack. I figured this would be a pretty popular discussion. So thanks, Igor, for putting the materials together too. So yeah, and let's move on to MySQL Aurora serverless. So we have Ken here. So Ken, I mean, do you want me to just keep control of the slides, or do you want to like share your screen? Either way works for me. But
I think that's fine. My screen's messy.
All right, no worries. So yeah, I mean, please like introduce yourself, including where you're located, and then take it away.
Yeah. So my name is Ken Winter. I am located in Indiana in the US. And I work at a startup called Voxy Inc. So don't want to jump into that too much, but ran across Cube.js from a friend that I worked with previously. We at Voxy are doing pretty much everything serverless. So I switched to Aurora serverless over the last, well, in February, I switched to Aurora serverless, and I switched everything to use the data API over the last month or so. And that's when I began kind of jumping into Cube.js a bit. And I guess that kind of sets the framework for where we are right now. I don't know if you want me to go into the driver or.
Yeah. I mean, let's do that. I mean, I think it was on Monday you published the blog post, so we have a link there so people can look at it. And I also posted on the Slack channel a couple of days ago. Yeah, I mean, talk about like why what the need of the driver was and how you went about sort of putting this together.
Definitely. So for us, we have some internal and external analytics, and they're pretty bad, right? It's just some dashboards that we wrote, and they were some stored procedures. And I really wanted to improve things both from speed perspective, visualization perspective, and exploration perspective for especially internal users. So that's why I jumped on this. And since we have everything serverless, I've broken everything out of the VPC and direct access from there. So switching to the data API, really super simple to implement a new driver into Cube.js, especially since it follows MySQL for the most part, and able to emulate the current MySQL driver and then just pop this on top of it as a layer. I think ultimately it was around 150 lines of code to add the driver. I'd say the most difficult part was adding in the tests. So just making sure that in the future things don't break, but having to build the MySQL container and the local data API container just to emulate that functionality was a little frustrating. Nothing to do with Cube.js, obviously, but just ensuring that integrity when making those commits and changes. So
cool. Yeah, we I also added a link to the pull request there in case people want to see the details. I mean, just a couple of great questions on the contribution, I guess, because if I remember correctly, I mean, there wasn't like an issue that existed regarding like Aurora serverless, right? I mean, like, how did you just open a pull request and ping people for review, or did you have any discussions on Slack prior to getting started on this work?
No, I didn't. Yeah. I mean, I saw that the Slack community was there, but I didn't even join until after it was merged in. There wasn't an issue existing for it. I kind of just created it out of my own need and saw how simple it was to add in, and yeah, really just grew from there. And then that's when I was like, okay, I'll join the Slack community, and it as a community contributed driver, knowing that if issues come up, then if people need to ping me about something, or if something needs to be added or fixed, whatever, then Slack is probably the easiest route for communication.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, really kudos. I mean, obviously this is like before we had the landing page for contributors, and like it's no matter which open source community we're like I'm at, it's surprising that people sort of take the initiative to like submit a pull request, which sometimes could be intimidating, but I applaud you for taking the initiative to do this. And I want like other people to sort of ask questions as well, like whether it's verbally or it looks like there's a question from David on the chat. The distinction is using the RDS data API for Aurora versus a traditional connection route. I don't know if you see that question, Ken, but.
Correct. Yes. So if you are familiar with Jeremy Daly, he wrote a Node.js library that uses or kind of simplifies the connection to the RDS data API. So it uses that so that you can use that connection outside of the VPC, and you don't have to do any of the proxy or I think he also had like a serverless MySQL package, but some of those other ways of managing those connection pools from a Lambda function or what have you.
Cool, thanks. Hopefully, David, that answers your question. I mean, I guess the other question that's related to your driver, Ken, is, I mean, there anything that you want from like a community members in terms of like making further contribution to the driver or any feedback that you're looking for?
I think just people trying it out and using it, right? I've used it myself, but my guess is that's been the only use so far. So I'd say one of the biggest limitations is more on the data API, which is the 45-second timeout. But like, are there going to be scenarios where that's an issue and something else needs to be done? I mean, I'm not sure, but yeah, just use and kind of seeing what needs to be done moving forward. Or if anything, maybe everything works perfectly for every use case. Maybe we'll be lucky.
Right. Cool. Yeah, and then I sort of alluded to this. I mean, you're continuing to make like a contribution. Have a link to another pull request that you have. Yeah, tell us a little bit about that work in progress that you have going on with the DynamoDB cache and queue drivers.
So as I said before, my goal was to have a completely serverless, non-VPC solution. And right now, the two options are to run either local in-memory store or in production mode. You know, natively it uses Redis, so you have to set up that Redis connection. And I looked at using lambda.store, which is a serverless Redis, and I'm not sure that it works super well from a pricing model with Cube.js, just because you have, you know, these refresh conditions and kind of going back out to hit that cache and stuff like that. And you can quickly hit the free tier and then have to bump it up. And I was like, well, I don't know that that's really from a performance perspective going to be useful. So that's when I was like, okay, well, I saw someone mention before a DynamoDB cache, and I created that. And then I realized after a few people mentioned that it also needed the queue driver. So that's definitely a little more difficult to build, just because DynamoDB is not really meant for that, right? Like it works quite a bit differently than Redis. So I've set up a single table design where you can store the cache and the queue in there together. It mostly works. However, as I've posted in the contributor Slack channel, there are some bugs that I'm still working through where it just won't return some data to the API gateway, or it, you know, throws an error, whatever. I'd say it works probably 70% of the time right now. So yeah, work in progress, but hopefully that will offer people the completely serverless solution. And I mean, there's still some exploration to find out if that's a good pricing model. How often does it need to hit? You know, are we talking $1 for DynamoDB a month, or are we talking, you know, hundreds of dollars? I mean, what I don't know what that scale looks like. So still have to look at that.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, I mean, Pavel or others, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, or yeah, I think I mean, people finally started providing feedback on the pull request and discussion on Slack channel. But
yeah, yeah, hi Ken. So yeah, I would like to thank you for this contribution. I think this is huge, and basically, so this is ongoing conversation of making like Cube.js like 100% serverless. So this is DynamoDB and MySQL Aurora driver, huge for that. And also there is also Postgres Aurora driver, which can be also helpful, and we are looking for this contribution as well for someone who uses Postgres with Cube.js in a serverless way. So those are all great stuff, and we are looking towards getting these contributions done. So I have a couple of questions here to follow up. Yeah, first of all, like on DynamoDB side, yeah, this is queue thing is really a tough part like of this implementation, and we know that before that this is where most of the time should be spent while doing this stuff. So and someone in community mentioned that there is support of transactions like for DynamoDB. Did you have a chance to check this out?
Yeah, so for most of the writes, it uses transactions, and there's some stuff to kind of still dive in from my perspective to see like some of the refreshes or the keep alives will try to write, for example, and then it'll kick it back because it's already being written to. And so I don't know if I should change every write or every update or read to a transaction. Maybe some of them don't need to be, but yeah, one thing where it differs from Redis is you can do a read and a write in the same multi-statement, but you can't do that with DynamoDB. So you basically have to commit the write and then do a read. And then if you need another write on that data, then you have to do another write. So those are some of the kind of challenges that have come up. Whereas in Redis, it's a lot simpler. So
yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, it's probably one hint you may use there. It's in Redis we do it sometimes in some places. So where there is no way like to set the logs, there can be some way of optimistic concurrency there. So it's probably what you can use to work around these issues. Yeah. However, if there are transactions, I mean, at least for one record, I believe it's doable there. Like you can approach this problem and hopefully solve it. Yeah. Looking forward to this driver. It's really huge for us. And I think another one question that comes to mind out of this like MySQL driver for Aurora, did you have a chance to like test it with pre-aggregations right now?
I tested it with the DynamoDB Q driver, and it's worked so far.
Okay, cool. And I'm more specifically interested in pre-aggregations and Cube.js pre-aggregations. Did you have a chance to check?
Yeah, I didn't test it in the original, but yeah, it seems to be working fine so far. I haven't dug in, but you can even see them being added on my database, which cool. I could pull, or I created a complete package tutorial for this, and I mean I could share that with the team or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's great because if it works, I'm just wondering if there are possible configurations where, for example, to build pre-aggregations, and if you're familiar with this, we have this refresh scheduler concept that can be used to refresh your pre-aggregations on the schedule. And I'm curious if there is a way to build this architecture where you refresh pre-aggregations in separate instances, in Lambda instances, and you can use MySQL, like this generic MySQL driver to work around this timeout issue, stuff like that, because it's long running queries. You can build them like up to 10 minutes, stuff like that. And you can use for serving data, serving for pre-aggregations. You mentioned this 45 seconds timeout issue. So you can use probably this MySQL Aurora driver to basically query this pre-aggregations built in the refresh scheduler. This way you can work around all this timeout issues, stuff like that. Yeah. I'm just wondering if it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't see why not. You would still have to put those in the VPC, which, I mean, for most people is fine, right? Most people are going to have that. For my specific use case, I migrated everything out just from like a cost savings perspective right now for, my company's like 8 people. So, but yeah, I think that would work for either way that you did the queue drivers, because you have the expiration time on the cache. So if you just had a triggered event that, sends either from Dynamo, you can do a DynamoDB stream where if that TTL hits, then, you know, it triggers one of those other pre-aggregations or something like that. That's a pretty, I think that would be pretty easy to integrate.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. There's looks like there's one more question. Actually, this is the same question I had as Igor. And I think we'll just, for the sake of time, I think, because we have one more topic, we'll probably move this to Slack on the contributor channel. And the question is basically on, is there anything we can do in terms of our APIs to help simplify the development of other drivers? And I think, Ken, you probably have like good insight on that, and we have a few other people that contributed drivers as well. But yeah, I mean, Igor, I certainly agree with you, because that was sort of the question I had in the back of my mind, but we'll move this to Slack and then continue the conversation so that Hassan has adequate time to talk about the great work he's done on the documentation side of things. Ken, I mean, thanks very much. I mean, not only for your contributions, but leading the discussion as well. So really appreciate it. All right, so without further ado, hopefully, Hassan, apologies, like we didn't want to like squeeze it too much, like squeeze it like towards the end, but I think we can go like 5 minutes over, and like just assume that you have another 10 minutes to talk about this. So hopefully there'll be enough time. So
I'll be quick.
Yeah.
So, hi everyone. Nice to see everyone on the second community call. So since the last call, we have been quite busy working on the documentation. We have updated our getting started guides. We've created a new getting started with Docker page. And we would love everyone's feedback on all the work that we're doing. So feel free to post questions here or to directly contact us via Slack, GitHub, or email. We have created a new configuration overview page and a configuration reference page. These are to basically help guide you setting the new configuration options with the Cube.js file, as well as going over differences between setting options via Cube.js versus environment variables. We have started updating authentication and authorization documentation. So this is, you may remember this as the old security page. We are actively adding new information there, and so keep your eyes peeled. We have started to update our caching documents, and you should be able to see some of the changes very, very soon. And one of the bigger, I guess, more standout items is we've started to improve the look and feel of the documentation website to hopefully make it a little less visually distracting. It's kind of adding a bit more spacing and making it hopefully a little bit clearer for you guys to read documentation. There are PRs for most of these things out on the repo, or they've already been merged. If you'd like, we always love feedback, and yeah, you can comment straight on the GitHub PRs. We'd love that. Or yeah, as I said, Slack, GitHub, or email or work for us. And yeah, any questions from anyone?
And Hassan, like, do these all have, I mean, I think most of these were authored by either you or RTM, like in terms of PRs, right? And then do we, I can't remember, I should know this, like, do we also have like a documentation label on these PRs, or?
I have created a new label, and I've been assigning, adding the docs label to them.
Right.
Yeah, if anyone creates a new issue and tags it with docs, that will come to me ASAP.
Right. Yeah, and then if people want to look at the history of sort of the PRs over the last month or so, I guess I can like search that label as well if people want to take a look at the internals of the work you've done.
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool. And then, you know, obviously, like any questions that people have, like they can, you know, like you said, I mean, Slack is another place where they can like reach out to any one of us with docs questions. And yeah, I mean, it's like documentation, unfortunately, a lot of communities or even software companies tend to get like ignored, but really appreciate you and our team and other people putting in a lot of work, because this is where like users typically go first, or community members go first to look at documentation. So yeah, any feedback that users and community members have on docs will certainly be appreciated.
You already have received some feedback from the community, and yeah, I'd just like to say thanks to those members who have posted issues and contacted me on Slack. Right. We're taking your feedback into account. We are definitely triaging it and looking to improve based on your feedback.
Cool, awesome. Cool. I think we're sort of like a 1 minute to go. Like, I'm not sure if people have other questions. Let me browse through chats and make sure there aren't any questions that I missed. Anything else people want to add before we adjourn for the month? All right. I'm assuming there are no other questions, but feel free to reach out to us on Slack. And before I wrap up, I just wanted to wish everyone a happy and safe holiday season and a great new year, and look forward to talking to you again in January. I really appreciate everybody's participation, and wish everyone good health. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Ray. Thank you.